want to hold both parties accountable. Republicans promised to cut spending, but when they had the power in 2017, they passed the largest spending bill in U.S. history. Democrats promised us criminal justice reforms, and none of those bills left the House. So if you want to hold them accountable, send me, Kevin Hale, to Congress, and I'll do that for you. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Christopher Clayter, and I'm running for Congress, U.S. Representative for Texas 3rd District. I feel I'm very qualified for this position because I am a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point. There, I learned a great deal about leadership as well as service. I dedicated myself to a lifetime of service to this nation, and I feel I can serve there very well. I'm running as a Libertarian because I believe they're a better choice over the Republicans and Democrats. Libertarians will bring minimum government and maximum freedom. My campaign slogan is "Drive to the future by getting government out of the way." In order to get the government out of the way, we must reduce regulation, reduce taxes, reduce spending, reduce entitlements. By doing these things, we will be free to move forward for a better future.
Well, early voting is happening now, so I thought I would pop in and say hello. This is Christy Mowry, and I'm running for Texas State Board of Education, District 12. Texas education is currently ranked 45th in the nation. It is a massive taxpayer-funded scheme that's failing our kids. If you love that, keep voting for the duopoly. If you don't, let's change the system that pushes progressive collectivism over individual thought. Let's get it back to where we can give the power to the parents. If we want to preserve liberty for future generations, we must start with the way we educate our kids. A handful of biased politicians and bureaucrats in Austin do not know your child better than you do. One-size-fits-all system is failing. I support educational freedom, choice, classical academics, new education models, and a parent's right to choose what's best for their child. I also believe that it is not only possible, but it's absolutely necessary that we end this system of stealing property tax dollars to fund our education system. Other states have done it. We can make this a reality. To learn more about me and where I stand, please check out my website at christymowry.org or Instagram at Christy for Freedom. You can also check out Twitter at electmowry. Please go out and vote.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Schroppel, Libertarian candidate for Texas State Senate District 22. I'm not a politician. I'm a truck driver. Like most voters, I'm concerned about the direction that our state legislature is headed, and I want to see a change. That's why I'm running, so I can make a change, so I can represent the people. Remember, on the 8th of November, vote yes for Jeremy S., and you can forget about the rest. I might be last on the ballot, but I'm going to make the biggest difference.
Have you or someone you know been injured by government regulations? There is help. I'm Jeff Miller, and I'm running for Texas State Representative District 14. If your business was shut down, if they told you not to come to work or your kids not to go to the schools that your tax dollars paid for, you may be entitled to financial compensation, as in your own money back. Government has been robbing you for years and then not even delivering on the services that they promise you. If any business had this kind of track record, they'd be out of business. But somehow the government keeps getting away with it. But if you elect me, I'll take them to task. I'll oppose mandates, restrictions, red tape, and bureaucracy. And most importantly, I'll work to repeal bad laws, like those that attempt to protect you from yourself. I want you to have the freedom to do what you want to do, not what our government overlords tell you you're allowed to do today. So if you believe that adults should be free to decide who to do business with, who to have personal relationships with, and what they can put in their own bodies, vote Miller. If you don't ever want your right to work, assemble, worship, or simply leave your house to ever be trampled upon again, vote Miller. I'm Jeff Miller, and I'd appreciate your vote this November for Texas State Representative, District 14. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nolan Schmidt, and I'm the Libertarian candidate for Guadalupe County Judge. The reason why I'm running, I believe that Guadalupe County should be truly fiscally conservative. That means cutting taxes, cutting spending, and cutting down the budgets. That way, Guadalupe County can be conservative without any debt. Second, I believe in the rights of small businesses. That means no mandates to shut down any businesses, especially during a pandemic. No government control on decisions by small businesses. And also protections for landlords from any type of federal or state mandate that will prevent them from getting rent from their tenants or evicting them. Finally, I believe in supporting the special needs community. Families with adults and children with special needs need resources, and I want to try to get that done without the need of taxes. I'm Nolan Schmidt, and I approve this message.
Hello everyone, Daniel McCarthy here, candidate for Texas House District 48. I am the vice chair also for Travis County Libertarian Party, and was asked to run this year since otherwise the Democrat would be running unopposed. So we have a really good shot here in Texas 48 to upset the establishment, although it is a very gerrymandered district in the Democrats' favor. Let's see. I'm running on like a school choice is my number one issue. I'd also like to see taxes cut across the board, of course. I'd like to see some sane approaches to marijuana and everything else in Texas. I mean, the blue laws on cars, for example, you can't sell cars on Sundays. That's liquor, gambling, prostitution, everything. We need to legalize or decriminalize rather. Just about all the freedoms that have been stripped. As humans, we should enjoy ourselves responsibly, and whether that means you're shooting guns or smoking a bowl after work, whatever it may be, we're adults, and the state doesn't need to hold our hands. That's my big thrust. Also, employers need to be able to choose who they employ. Doesn't matter what country they were born in. They should also choose when to keep their businesses open, when to close, who to serve, all that kind of thing. As a business owner, you've got a lot on your hands without the state trying to hold them. So that's it. Again, my name is Dan McCarthy, and I'm running for Texas 48.
Hi, y'all. We'll be starting just shortly on the live stream. I'm Amanda Gibbs. I am part of the Libertarian Party of Texas communication team. Our goal tonight is to allow voters to know that they do not have to choose between the lesser of two evils. As Texans, we can vote our conscience. The two-party system is broken, and we want you, as a Texas voter, to know that there are options on the ballot. There are other options. There are better options on the ballot. So tonight we're going to be chatting with two of our statewide candidates for LP Texas. Feel free to hop in the comments or ask questions about the candidates, their policies, or anything else that could or would help you feel like you do not have to choose between the lesser of two evils. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the show.
Texas government and the governor keep getting bigger and bossier, spending more than at any other time in history, and controlling more of the money you earn. The federal government prints and borrows trillions of dollars, causing inflation, which has ballooned the assets of the billionaires, the debt of our children, and the cost of living of hardworking Texans. And while Texas Governor Greg Abbott gives out hundreds of millions of dollars in government subsidies and tax breaks to large corporations, law-abiding, tax-paying Texans struggle to afford to buy a home. And when they finally do buy a home, are forever enslaved paying property tax. When people speak up, the powerful Democrats and Republicans clamp down. They silence and slander anyone who tries to dissent from the duopoly of the two-party system, passing laws and filing suits to keep independents and third-party candidates from speaking up and off the ballot. They are censoring what you see and say, using COVID as a political weapon of choice. Governor Abbott has attacked and shut down small businesses, churches, schools, and other hardworking Texans with his unconstitutional mandates. And the Democrats only wish to replace one tyrant for another. You see, Governor Abbott and all Republicans and Democrats believe they are elected to be your boss. They've got it backwards. You are the boss. That's why I'm running for governor, to put you back in charge of your life. Together, we will make Texas the freest place on earth, with freedom to build a business without red tape and heavy taxation, freedom to keep the fruits of your labor, freedom from the invisible theft of inflation, freedom to educate your children the way you see fit, freedom to raise your kids with your values, freedom to make your own health and vaccine choices, freedom to speak without fear, and freedom to worship in your own way. You see, in a free state, small government makes room for bigger citizens. People can take responsibility for themselves, where neighbors take care of neighbors, where a job is the best welfare program. Families and communities are the best safety net. The people with power, Democrats and Republicans, will fight with everything they have to keep this power for themselves. It won't be easy, but easy has got us where we are now. Commitment and hard work will lead us to a Texas where the government is servant to the people, where we are the masters of our own fate, and you are the captain of your destiny. I am Mark Tippetts, Libertarian candidate for governor.
Hello.
Well, howdy, everybody. Welcome all of my fellow Texans. Welcome, fellow Libertarians, and anybody else who's joining us tonight. We're very excited for you to join us. We have a pretty good AMA planned out for you. No longer an Ask Mark anything, but an Ask Mark or Jaime anything. So we're really looking forward to your questions showing up in the Facebook or the other streams that however you're watching it, YouTube. Or however, just real quickly, wanted to kind of give everybody, if there's somebody joining us who doesn't necessarily know what the Libertarian Party is or what libertarians are about, just kind of wanted to touch on that real briefly and let everyone know that libertarians are mainly set to look for maximizing freedom. So yeah, we are a political party. But we're kind of like the political party that's an anti-political party somewhat. We'd like to get government smaller, not larger. One of the sayings that I heard recently that I think describes libertarianism very well as far as maximizing freedom is that we're socially compassionate, but we are fiscally responsible. We want people to do their own thing, go their own ways, but also not to have to be burdened by huge taxes and that sort of thing. So that's kind of what libertarianism is. As y'all probably know now, this is our third and will be our final installment right before Election Day. So we have joining us, as before, we have Mark Tippetts, candidate for governor. And this time we are very, very lucky to have Jaime Diez join us as well, who is our candidate for railroad commissioner. So Mark, would you like to give us a brief introduction? I know most of the people that probably are watching probably know you by now, but if not, have at it.
Thanks a lot, Darren. Sure. Good to see you, Jaime. Glad to be on here together. Before I start, I just want to offer my thoughts and prayers to all my family and friends and everybody, the public in general in Belize, where I lived for many, many years, and the whole Yucatan Peninsula that are getting hammered right now with Hurricane Lisa. I just want everyone to know that our thoughts and prayers are are with family and friends and the public in general there. I was born and raised in Mexico, like most people know. I have lived in Mexico. I've built a hydroelectric plant in Belize, which, like I say, is getting hammered by a hurricane right now. And this is my second run as a candidate for the Libertarian Party as governor. And I believe most people that are probably watching us know who I am, what my background is. I have a background in law, business administration. I'm an international legal and business consultant, bilingual, bicultural, born and raised in Mexico and Central America. And I'm here to forward the movement and plant the seeds of liberty and freedom.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mark. And now we would like to have Jaime introduce himself. He's our candidate for the Railroad Commission. Jaime, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you?
Hey, Darren, thank you. My name's Jaime Diez. I'm from Brownsville, Texas. Currently, I'm in Midland. We just had a little meet and greet in some Mexican restaurant over here. But I grew up in Brownsville. My family's from Mexico. My mom's from Tamaulipas, from Matamoros. My dad's from Mexico City. I was born on the border, went to school on the border, and then I eventually graduated high school, went to school in Dallas, went to school in SMU, studying mechanical engineering. And I finished school in 2019. So my plan was actually never to do anything political whatsoever. What ended up happening was that I graduated in 2019, a year into my professional life. COVID started, right? So I was unemployed, had nothing to do, and I ended up running for school board. And particularly because of the issue of school choice, I got really interested in the libertarian ideology. And I started getting small donations to the party. And all this resulted in me and now running for Railroad Commission. So it's funny how life takes a turn, right? And it's crazy because, I mean, had COVID not happened, I would have probably never had this opportunity that I have today. For what it's worth, I'm very grateful for that.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jaime. Appreciate that. So we have a question from Judith, who's asking, Jaime, if the Texas Railroad Commission doesn't oversee railroads, then what does it do?
It's a crazy misnomer. When I first signed up to run for this campaign, a lot of people told me, Jaime, you have to make a pivotal part of the campaign to change the name of Railroad Commissioner, right? Which, I mean, I thought was actually a good way to go about it, because it's not actual policy. It's kind of like if you run for mayor and you say, I'm going to run for mayor, and first thing I want to do is I want to rename mayor to president of X town, right? So I decided not to make that a big part of my campaign, but, just traveling around the state and meeting different people, I realized that a lot of people actually do think it has to do with railroads. Since 2005, railroads were actually transferred over to TxDOT for under their regulatory purview. And what the Railroad Commission sees today, it's oil and gas, natural gas infrastructure, pipelines within the state of Texas. So that's any pipeline that starts and ends in Texas, and coal and uranium mines. So since 2005, it's nothing to do with railroads. And in reality, it probably should be named something more like the Natural Resource Commission, in my opinion.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. So the way I'd like to hopefully do this is for the people asking the questions in the comments, if you would please specify if you want it for Mark or for Jaime or for both. And please keep the questions along the lines of what their jobs would, their purview of their jobs or their potential jobs would be, so that we kind of stay on target, though, and don't have to answer things that are just out in left field as far as something that the governor or the railroad commissioner can't have anything to do with. But with that said, then I guess we're just going to hit the questions hard and see how many we can get in. Do we have a first question? Well, while we're waiting for that, then here we go. All right, perfect. This is from Vote Texas Gold on YouTube to both of you. Well, since Jaime is new here, we'll let him go first on this one. What are your top priorities once elected, and how would you proceed on these issues? Please be as specific as time allows. So, Jaime, with that, what would you say to that question? What's your priorities?
So, I'll go a little bit quick. The Railroad Commission, the first issue that they should deal with, I think, is orphan wells. So orphan wells is whenever an operator goes bankrupt in the state of Texas, their plugging liability goes to the state. So it falls on taxpayers to plug these wells. Currently, about half the Railroad Commission's budget goes to plugging these orphan wells, and that works out to about $56 million a year. So I think the Railroad Commission should impose full bonding liability. So that means that the money is there in case the operator goes bankrupt. On the other side, I think that is the matter of when you plug a well, right? The issue right now is in Texas, if you plug a well, an oil well, you're liable in perpetuity for that job, right? So operators are kind of disincentivized from wanting to plug their own wells in a timely fashion, because if it were up to them, they want to kind of sell them to somebody else, hope that they plug them and they assume that liability, right? So I think it's important the Railroad Commission is a little more thoughtful in regards to offering well plugging extensions. The second point would be to update their databases. Spindletop was drilled in 1901. Since then, there's been a lot of wells that have been drilled. The database actually, on the Railroad Commission's database, I can access online, they only have records from 1964 onwards. So there's a big gap. And I think the Railroad Commission should have an active database in order to allow operators that are conscientious to actually be able to do their job as effectively as possible. And the third point is something called P13 wells. This is whenever an operator or a wildcatter makes a well in the ground, it comes out dry. What happens is that they'll start plugging it, they'll get to the groundwater layer, and when they get here, they'll do the paperwork to make it a water well, which is interesting because once you do this, it falls out of the Railroad Commission's purview and it falls into the TCEQ's regulatory guidance. The thing is that as operators start doing pressure or operations to maintain well pressure, they'll pump water into the ground, and some of these plug jobs might go bad and water will start shooting out of the ground. In these cases, the TCEQ doesn't want to plug these wells because they say they're not oil and gas wells, they're water wells, and the TCEQ says our job's not to plug water wells. So just working with the TCEQ to find to get rid of this gray area, right, in which nobody knows what to do with these liabilities.
Outstanding. When you first started talking, I thought you were going to start talking about Citizen Kane because I heard Orson Welles, but yeah, orphan wells. Gotcha. Orphan wells. Yeah, that's actually something that my family's had to deal with on our land. So yeah, definitely a big deal. I think it happens quite often, a lot more than people probably imagine. Now to you, Mark, what is your big top priorities once elected?
I think it's important to understand, and one of the priorities that I will do is let the general population, let the general public of Texas truly understand what the office of governor is. If you listen to the Democrats and Republicans, or the two old parties, day one, I will ban guns. Day one, I will give abortion to everybody. Day one, the governor does not have that authority. And if the governor did have that authority, that would be not my number one job, is to get rid of the governor having that number one authority. With that said, one of the main priority that I would work on at the get-go is school choice. School choice creates, by not having school choice, it creates a lot of the problems that we see in the schools. We need to have school choice so we empower, once again, the parents to be able to educate their children the way they see fit. How would I go about doing that? Is by going around the state and speaking to the parents and letting them know that they must tell their representatives to pass legislation that would give them school choice so that I could sign it. As governor, I have the power to sign or veto things. I don't have the power to actually legislate things. Now, I can lead and I can inspire. And that's what I would be doing the most, is inspiring the parents and leading the parents to make sure that their representatives legislate the laws that will give them school choice.
Very big issue. Thank you, Mark, for addressing that. So with that, then we can go on. Do we have another one? Okay. So we have a question from YouTube now from Jason O. And he's specifically asking Jaime, how will you work with ERCOT to ensure energy delivery is consistent during Texas extreme weather events? Would you consider working with Musk for a Tesla Hornsdale battery backup in Texas? Interesting question.
Yeah, so Road Commission it's a misunderstanding. The Road Commission oversees the part of ERCOT, which is natural gas utilities, up until the point that the power gets put onto the lines, right? At which point it becomes it falls under ERCOT's jurisdiction. That ERCOT's is run by the PUC, which is signed by the legislator. In regards to weatherization, I think that the Road Commission has taken good steps in regards to requiring that companies or oil and gas transporters, the different counterparts in the natural gas industry do weatherize to a certain standard. If they're above a certain size, they do offer exemptions for the weatherization. However, they've been pretty standoffish in regards to offering those. What the issue I do see is that the Road Commission has been transparent in regards to which facilities are required to weatherize. So it makes it hard for third parties to audit it. And the other part is also that they've capped fines for not weatherizing to $1 million. And I think that whenever you cap fines, you make it kind of a game theoretical. It's like, for example, if I don't weatherize, I have to pay $1 million. Does it make sense for me to weatherize or not weatherize? So I really don't think that these fines should be capped. In regards to Elon Musk's battery pack, I think a big issue with our grid as it stands is one, federal level subsidies for renewable energies, wind and solar, because they push investment in certain sectors that we might be overdeveloping at the time. And the other issue is that we do hold natural gas infrastructure to a higher reliability standard than we do our renewable infrastructure, right? So currently we're flooding the grid with renewable energy that's heavily subsidized at the federal level. This in turn demonetizes these natural gas utilities that want to scale down their operations, yet the grid still needs them there so whenever the renewable power is not available, they can ramp up, right? Because we can't do anything in regards to the federal government issuing subsidies for these projects. I think that ERCOT should put a requirement that if you're a power generator, it should be mandated that X percentage of the power that you're generating throughout the day should be available during peak hours, right? This will require natural gas utilities to either invest in battery packs like Musk is offering, or to invest in natural gas infrastructure directly. Those are my ideas in regards to the grid. However, our Road Commission sadly does not oversee the grid. So
right.
These are just thoughts.
So not quite in your purview, but being that I've worked in the fossil fuel industry for a while, fossil generation, and now I work on batteries. I will say that the batteries definitely have limitations that most people don't quite understand as far as what they can do and how long they can do it for, especially. But Mark, I know you've answered this question before, but do you have anything to add to that?
Well, the one thing I've built renewable resources, a hydroelectric plant and that, and I understand the grid and I understand the battery packs and I understand the system relatively well. The problem with battery packs and backup systems for natural gas and oil and diesel generation is they're not necessary, and they do absolutely they would do no good. The backup power, because the renewable resources, the wind and solar, They cannot store power to be able to offer at peak demand. They offer whatever's there, and they could store it. Those are the ones that could store it. I don't advocate for the storing of it. But with the diesel and even the hydroelectric, for that matter, they don't have to store it because they can ramp up and generate more. They store the fuel and they store the to generate more when it is needed. The best thing that we could do to alleviate the problem is get the government out of it. One of the things that Jaime did say that I wanted to emphasize on is we have to get rid of the limitations of fines, because they just work it into their bean counters of, is it better to pay the fine, or is it better to really weatherize? Is it better to do that? We need to get rid of that. We need to get the government out of it. We need to get the government out of the subsidies. We need to make the companies liable. When they understand that they are liable and there's no limitation on their liability, we will not have any problems with the grid, because they will be liable for it. But as long as we have the government involved in it, it is all it does is the government becomes an scapegoat for the big companies.
Yeah, I like that. Essentially, I like what you touched on with the subsidies. I think is a huge deal. Most people don't understand how that affected the markets, but again, government getting involved is not always a good deal. Okay, so we have another question for Jaime now, which is, what is a polluter pays principle? Do you know what that means? Because I don't.
I do. So it's on my website. We were trying to get very creative with the words and polluter pay principle. Nice. It's not an actual thing. We made it up.
Nice.
But,
okay.
The idea ends up being that if your percent contaminates, you should be liable for the cleanup, right? So this is referencing particularly the wells, right? That if you make a well, you should have money set aside for plugging it. Because when you don't do that, then the cost is offset to the people of Texas. And that's not right. I was telling a friend of mine, it's like growing up, I grew up in a Hispanic household, so my mom would be like, limpia tu cuarto, ¿verdad? And it's like whenever your room gets messy, you just got to clean it up, right? If you made the mess. And I think that's the framework the Road Commission should follow in regards to viewing into contamination.
Yeah, you'd almost think it was already that way. It seems outrageous. So we're going on to another one from Judith. And she asks to you, Mark, would you please specify what you could and would do to lower property taxes as governor of Texas?
As governor of Texas, directly what I could do to lower property taxes is the same thing that I was saying about school choice. We hear the two old parties saying, I am going to lower the property taxes on day one. It's just more of perpetuating a lie. They cannot. Now, what I would do is I would promote lowering the property tax so that the people, we have to understand, we have to empower the Texas people to get creative and to solve these problems. But if the government takes it upon themselves to solve these problems or offer solutions, the Texas people, which are they are the smartest and brightest people on the planet Earth. We can solve these problems, but we need true leadership. We need leadership that will tell the Texas people what it is we need, how we have to go about it, and then lead them. Let them actually force their legislators to do some work, not sit there and pass laws to keep us off of the ballot. Do the actual work that does good for the Texas people. That is how you lead. Abbott and all the Two old party cronies is all they do is put people in their positions to take and pass their agendas. We need to stop that. We need to start moving and passing the Texas people's agenda, which is not having to pay property tax. We can at least start with when you retire. When you retire, you should not have a ball and chain around your neck of paying property tax for your property that you fought so hard to pay off. But that's how we do it, is we have to empower the people once again. The people are that we feel like we are at the mercy of whoever is elected into office. We need to take control back.
Outstanding. Jaime, do you have anything you wanted to add to that as far as property taxes go? I know it's not really in the huge purview of the Railroad Commission, but do you have anything to add?
Well, not necessarily. I do think that property taxes and income tax are the two most coercive forms of taxation, right? Because you can't really opt to not live anywhere, and you can't opt not to work. So I do think that in regards to libertarians, that we should definitely put a priority on addressing those two.
Outstanding. Nice. Okay, we've got another question coming up from the SP Spaz off of YouTube, and he's asking you, Jaime. I know you're a big Bitcoin guy. I've heard Bitcoin mining is a big drain on the power grid too, though. Is there a way to make it more energy efficient as we transition to future currencies?
So Bitcoin mining, first off, in talking to the grid, which I feel like I'm talking about the grid a lot, but in Texas, you operate on an energy-only market, right? So what this means is that you only get paid for the energy that you sell to the grid. There's other states that have a capacity market. And not only do you get paid for the power that you sell onto the grid, but you also get paid for additional capacity that you have. So in Texas, we're energy only. We have low rates, but the issue ends up being that whenever you got spikes in demand, it can get tricky to meet those increments, right? ERCOT has a thing called demand response that actually Bitcoin mining is great for. So what this happens is you register with ERCOT, and whenever you've got a interruptible power consumer like a Bitcoin miner, you pay this Bitcoin miner to turn off their machines and divert the power to the grid, right? The benefit of this is that it's a capacity. It's kind of like a hybrid market between an energy only and a capacity. But the real benefit is that you as a consumer only pay for what you consume. On top of that, also Bitcoin mining, it's important to point out that miners in general try to go to areas of cheap power. So this is usually areas of surplus power, a lot of areas with a lot of renewable, right? Because renewables it is constrained heavily through transmission lines. And so they'll set up there a lot. They'll capture a lot of stranded natural gas, which would be flared if it weren't used to mine Bitcoin. So it's a complicated issue. Bitcoin, however, I do think it is a net gain for ERCOT and especially for ratepayers in the state of Texas.
Excellent. Mark, would you have anything to add to that?
Well, if we would get government out of it and get regulation under control to where we get the scare tactics out of nuclear power, we'd have all the cheap renewable power we ever possibly need. But as long as you have these politicians playing games and fear mongering, nuclear power, more people die in coal mining and natural gas and oil and that production a year than has ever died combined in nuclear energy accidents. Think about that. I mean, but yet everybody has this boogeyman mentality when it comes to nuclear power. We need to solve that.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, please, Jaime. Go ahead.
I was speaking to somebody actually in a Bitcoin convention, and he was a veteran. He was telling me that it's crazy because currently I haven't fact checked his numbers, so I'll throw them out there. And if I'm wrong, please tell me in the group chat. But that the U.S. Navy right now currently has 200 vessels submarines and ships that are all powered with nuclear power, and they have not had a single issue. And these are all in the ocean. And the ocean, I mean, if you're dealing with engineering on the ocean, you're moving all over the place. It's a lot more complicated than on shore. However, for some reason it's safe when it comes to the military and it being out in the ocean, but when it's on land, I guess people got very skittish.
Not in my backyard, right?
Not in my backyard.
The NIMBYs. Yeah, hey, being a Navy nuke, I can vouch for that. I'm not sure exactly what our count is right now, but we've had many nuclear vessels, no major nuclear accidents. 2 of them are at the bottom of the ocean, unfortunately, but they're monitored still to this day by the U.S. Navy. So I would say I totally believe that it's very safe. So so now we're up to another one. This is from Nathan Kidman on Facebook, and it's a question for Mark. And he says, if the D's and R's, the old parties in the state Congress, fail to put any bills on your desk which would have bettered our economy and reduced the tyranny, would you call for a special session? Or can you think of any circumstances where you would call for a special session? Excellent question, Nathan.
That is an excellent question. And that is one of the privies of the governor. He can call a special session. Now, in what order and what importance the special session is given is still somewhat controlled by the lieutenant governor. But if the Texas legislature, the thing is that we have to understand 2 things. One, if I'm elected governor, it will be a shocker to the 2 old parties, 1, and 2, it will be a wake-up call for them to truly act and truly work. So if they try stonewalling on some of the issues that I will be daily out there in the entire state of Texas promoting, for the people to be promoting with their legislators, they're going to be in trouble. I don't think that would happen. However, it could happen, and they could play politics with it, but it will be so obvious that they will get ran out of office the very next go around, and they will be replaced with pure libertarians. And actually, that would be something that I don't foresee that they would ever do, because then they would be basically saying, okay, get rid of us and put in pure libertarians. So I wish they would do that, but I don't believe they would. And bottom line is, we know that the 2 old parties can work together. We fight laws that they put together all the time. They every session, it seems like, they have a bipartisan law to keep libertarians and third-party candidates off the ballot. So they do know how to work together. They can work together. And the best way to get the Democrats and Republicans to work together is to elect a libertarian governor. This state we would have the smallest government. We would have the biggest tax reduction. It would be amazing how much waste can be trimmed when you are not trying to solve the problem with the same mindset that created it. So I would love to have that challenge. I really would.
I bet that red pen would get a little bit of a workout, or the big veto stamp, or however that works.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Okay. So Gwen Riley says that I voted for Abbott twice, but not this time because he did the lockdowns and mask mandates. I know you're against those, but if there's another virus breakout, how would you stop the local people from mandates? Interesting question.
Well, and at the state level, the one thing that the governor and both federal and state must do, their main responsibility is to provide accurate information to the people. We were never provided accurate or true or even concise information whatsoever. We were provided mandates. And this is one thing that I will never do, is issue a mandate forcing the public to do anything. Because now I will provide up-to-date, concise, precise information as I see it. But I will never issue a mandate forcing the Texas people to do something. We're big enough. We can make our own decisions. If a business wants to shut down, go ahead. If people don't want to go to a business, go ahead. If you wanted to wear a mask, fine. If you felt that people not wearing a mask put you in danger, then wear a mask. Stay away from them. Those are your choices. The government does not have the right to make those choices for you.
Oh, love it.
Was my mic too loud?
No. You sound fine to me. I don't know if anybody pipes in. We'll definitely hear that. I know, Jaime, it's really not your bag. The mandates thing and whatnot is a railroad commission candidate. But you have anything to add to that? Just for fun.
It's the mask mandates.
Yeah.
In general, I think that it's an individual choice, right? Where it gets tricky for me is with public-owned infrastructure, right? What the state does in those cases. But in general, I think if you have a business and you want to require people to go in with a mask, it's your business. I mean, if you want to make them require them to get their shirt off before walking in, that's their prerogative. Well, so be it, right? That's kind of the way that I approach it.
So it's like just letting adults be adults, somewhat.
Just let people figure it out for themselves.
Right, exactly. Perfect. All right. What do we got next? Don't know where this question's coming from, but I guess it's for the both of you. It's on immigration, and the question is, what would you do to alleviate the financial burden on the communities most affected by immigrants? Excellent question. Jaime, I think this is right up your ballpark. What do you think should be done for that?
So,
this is a Twitter question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually grew up on the border, right? My dad does immigration law for a living, so it's been something that's really been prevalent in my household forever. I think a big issue with the immigration debate as it currently stands is that people argue on the presumption that there's a way for you to immigrate into this country, being Latin America and being of low means, right? The fact of the matter is that you could be a standout citizen in Latin America, have no criminal record, and not have any money, and there's absolutely no way for you to come into this country, right? And the thing is that whenever you have an urgent need to immigrate and there's no way to do it legally, well, that's when black markets tend to develop, right? So I usually talk about the immigration issue in this country being like having diarrhea and taping your butt cheeks closed and hoping that it works out. But I mean, I understand people's knee-jerk reactions, right? People's knee-jerk of like build the wall and all that, but it's a complex issue. And if we don't afford the issue the nuance and critical thought that it deserves, I mean, we can expect only the same.
Right. And Mark, I know you've addressed this before, but I think that you look like you want to add a little bit to this to conversation.
Yes, and I appreciate Jaime's input. He lives on the border. I was born and raised on the border. I was born in Mexico. I've dealt with this issue my entire life. I know how difficult it is to try to immigrate to the United States. I know how the red tape and bureaucracy is so difficult. The thing is the two old parties, they don't want to solve it, because if we go back in history 40, 50 years, every debate there, it's the same thing. Every election cycle, it's the same thing. Immigration, immigration, immigration. When the fact of the matter is, let's take the reality, not the Fox or CNN scare tactics that you see all day of all the drugs and crime and everything that's coming across the border. We create more homegrown crime than ever could be imagined flooding across the border. And no, I am not for open borders. I believe that countries' sovereign borders must be respected, should be respected. I like people coming to my house, but I don't like them jumping over my back fence. I like them coming through my front door. But the fact of the matter is this. If we were, any one of us, and anybody who says they would not is lying, any one of us put in the same position of trying to get a better life for their children and their family, if they would not come and face the river and try to get across the river or the desert or whatever, they're lying. There isn't a soul that is listening to this or in the state, maybe 0.1% of the people in the United States are here not due to immigration. We're all here due to immigration. And the fact of the matter is 95% of the people coming across the border is all they want is a better life and a better job. And it is something that the federal government has been threatening to fix for decades. I don't care if the Republicans are in power or the Democrats are in power. If they control it, nobody fixes the issue. And the fix is quite simple, really. But a lot of the people say, well, why don't they just get back in line and try to do it legally? Jaime's dad will tell you exactly why. Because it will cost them $20,000 to $30,000, and it will take them, if they're lucky, 15 years by the time they had a turn to get across. So what do? It's easier for them to pay a coyote $5,000 and for them to try to get across. You would do the same. I would do the same. Once again, I would rally the Texas people to make sure that the federal government passes comprehensive law that everybody could support and can enforce. And once we have that, then the communities that are affected by immigrants will be only positively affected because they will be there to work.
So, Mark, do you think like the Ellis Island style of immigration is the right answer then?
To be honest with you, I haven't really studied what it was, but as far as what I know that happened, it was exactly what it says on the Statue of Liberty. Anybody who came to the U.S. is all they were doing at Ellis Island, as far as history reminds me, is they were making sure they had no disease, they had no criminal record, and that was it. They weren't even checking to see if they had means of employment or sustenance or anything. A comprehensive immigration reform could be so simple. There was already a similar plan in effect way back when. It was called the Bracero program. Anybody who had a letter of employment would show up to the border with a clean bill of health, a clean, no criminal record, and an ID, and they were given a pass to come across and work. They could get a driver's license, they could get a social security, they could pay their taxes properly, they could come and go so long as they were employed. I don't know why it is so difficult to do that again.
Good question. Okay, so now we have another question about immigration, which is why shouldn't sanctuary cities share the burden of what is happening on the Texas border? Excellent question. Jaime, you want to take this one first?
I'm not too sure in regards to what they mean, but I do think that a lot of people that live in the northern part of the country aren't aware of the issue of immigration. And it's easy for them to have strong opinions when they have absolutely no idea what's going on. Kind of like what Mark was saying, that there's really no way to immigrate. And whenever the choice is, staying in a broken country or coming across and offering your kids a better life, the choice is pretty simple. I was talking a while about this in some talk that I did, and referencing Kamala Harris, right? Kamala Harris not wanting to come down to the border when she was put the task of solving the border crisis. And it's like, how do you think that you could fix an issue if you're never willing to go down to the problem, to face that place of actually dealing with it, right? And I think this is just a bigger issue with politicians not wanting to get out of their office and not wanting to go to the areas that they're actually governing over, right? It's that hubris that says that, I could have somebody tell me what the issue is, and I'm so smart that I can figure it out from here in DC. And we've seen where that's taken us.
Excellent. Mark, you care to have your say on this? What do you think?
Well, I think that the sanctuary cities, whether they like it or not, it's the tax payers that are paying this whole burden. My question is why should only sanctuary cities benefit from immigration? I think the entire country benefits from immigration. Not just, I don't think just sanctuary cities should be able to benefit from immigration. I think we all benefit from immigration. If they show on the TV immigrants all huddled in a shelter, and the governor going, "Oh, I don't know how I'm going to feed all of them." Believe me, there's tons of restaurants that will hire them. I mean, the idea that they have them there, they only have them there as a photo op, because you let them go to get a job. There's plenty of jobs. Just look at the employment records. I mean, I would say, why should sanctuary cities only benefit from them? Where I live, there is such a shortage of workers that the people, the roofers and the drywallers and the yard men and everything else, they have to work a few days on one house and then jump to another house and then jump to another house, just so the builder can see some kind of movement going on, because there is not enough workers.
Exactly. Yeah, I still see plenty of help wanted signs around, so I'm not sure why we're trying to keep people out of this country that are willing to work. So now we have one from Twitter again, and it is, what is your view on deploying guard troops to the border? Mark, you want to take this one?
Yes. If I do understand that, and what I say about immigration that is not intended to minimize the problems that are being caused, to minimize the fact that there is a lot of criminal element there as well. I don't minimize that at all. And I apologize to anybody who thinks that I might be minimizing that. I don't. That is a true issue. The problem here is we are going about this backwards. The maximum law enforcement agency in a county, more superior than the president of the United States or the governor or anyone else, the maximum authority in a county must and always has been the sheriff. Why? Because that is the maximum law enforcement agency that is elected by the people. The FBI, the federal government, the state troopers, nobody is superior in that county to the sheriff. But the sheriff must have the backing of the governor in order to exercise his true authority. He needs to know that the governor has his back. Look what happened in Uvalde. They are now saying that some federal agents are being prosecuted or whatnot. How ridiculous is that? When you have federal and state agencies coming in and pushing the sheriff aside and getting rid of his authority, the sheriff can't even coordinate with the schools to set up their own safety protocols. Why? Because he cannot enforce it. So if we actually empower the sheriffs, once again, to take the role that they are elected to take, then yes, if the sheriffs require help, then yes, I would back them with any help that they need that's at my disposal.
Outstanding. How many? You have anything to add to this?
No, I mean, I think Mark covered it pretty well. I think that you should always defer to the local level whenever possible, and that's the sheriff.
Outstanding. All right, let's see what we got coming up next. All right. We're on to abortion now. So do you support a limit on when a woman or when women can have an abortion? I think, Mark, this is mainly for you. I don't know if Jaime has too much to do with this.
Well, I think oil and gas have. Want to switch places, Jaime? No. This is an issue that we can differ on opinion. We can differ on what we think is viable. What is quite interesting to me is there are a lot of people, and I don't minimize anybody for asking this question. I totally get it. But we seem to be more preoccupied with the unborn than even the ones that are born. There are so many needy children out there. There are so many neglected children out there. Where's the outcry for them? But abortion is an issue that I have always said a legislative body made up of 80% men should not be legislating morality that applies to women. And I do not apologize for feeling that way. I am a father of 6. Nothing is more precious to me than life. I've held it in my hand from 2 twins that were born way premature. I could hold both of them in one hand. So I do know the sanctity of life. I do appreciate that. But 4 of my kids are girls. And when a woman is faced with one of the most difficult decisions of their life, are we going to tag on there as well? Their moral conscience is going to be guiding them enough. We don't need to tell them be careful what you decide because you'll be a criminal. I leave to my religion. That I leave to your conscience. I do not leave that, nor do I give that authority to the government.
So, Mark, then how do you feel about doctors being prosecuted for their part in that industry?
Well, as having a background in law, I think anybody who has standing can prosecute anybody. The key word there is having standing. The only individual that would have standing in an issue like that would be the mother. It's between the doctor and the patient. This is why Governor Abbott's, or whatever that law is, I don't know who it is, that said that anyone can prosecute somebody for that they fail. That will never hold up in the Supreme Court. Why? Because they failed to realize in order to prosecute somebody, you have to have standing. And somebody who is revolted or upset or gets their feelings hurt over abortion, that does not give them standing.
Can you just briefly tell us what standing is for those of us who aren't speaking legalese?
Yeah, well, standing is, for instance, if I wrecked into you, okay, you have standing against me because I harmed you. Somebody who watched me wreck into you does not have standing to sue me. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Standing means you have to be the directly physically offended person.
Gotcha. Which the state doesn't necessarily have that standing in this case, right?
Well, and here's the thing: in this particular case, the state did not say it has standing either, because is what the state did. They said anybody who witnesses this or whatever can prosecute somebody. Well, the state is granting carte blanche standing to everybody. Well, it doesn't work that way unless maybe in a communist country or socialist country, but not in Texas.
Gotcha. Yeah, I learned a little bit there with that. I wasn't quite sure how all that worked. Okay, so now we have one for Jaime again, which is, do the railroad commissioners vote on policy? And I think part of that too is it's pluralized. I think a lot of people don't know that there's more than one railroad commissioner, right? And then how are their decisions made and implemented? So if you could give us a little bit of insight on that job and how that works, please.
So the road commissioners, they create rules, and it's a little bit nuanced. A lot of people don't know. So there's federal statutes like the Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Clean Water Act, and it's the role of administrative agencies like, for example, the Railroad Commission, to interpret these statutes and then create rules in order to enact them, right? And this goes state by state. So there's the railroad commissioners. There's every 2 years one gets turned over, right? So in 2 years there'll be another election. I think currently I'm up for seat 2, which is funny because when I ran for Diez, I was also for seat 2, and this is actually where a lot of the power from the railroad commission comes from, because there's a thing called the Chevron difference rule. So what the Chevron difference rule says that if you want to sue a company like, for example, I don't know, big oil company A, right, because they messed up your land, and you go directly to the courts are going to defer that decision down to the administrative agency, right? In this case being the Railroad Commission. So in order for you to preserve your right, in order to prosecute an operator, you have to exhaust every single administrative avenue that you have prior to doing so. And it's very expensive for landowners. This all stands in as so far as the agency responsible, or the administrative agency responsible, has a reasonable interpretation of the statute, right? That's really the only guideline. And it skews heavily the Railroad Commission's policies in favor of the operators as opposed to the landowners. And the issues really come that, well, if the landowner can actually watch out for his surface property rights, well, then there might also go the groundwater, right? And if the groundwater goes, that affects everybody in the state of Texas. So it's really about just having a railroad commission that's not necessarily partial, neither to the landowner or to oil and gas operators.
So this commission is kind of like, it's several people. How many railroad commissioners are there currently, or at any given time then?
So there's 3 commissioners. Currently, there's 3 Republicans. I think since '94, there's been nobody but Republicans at state level office. So as a dissenting vote, there's not really a whole lot you can do. However, you can put more scrutiny in, particularly in regards to, so what they'll do a lot with the Railroad Commission is they'll pile up a bunch of different applications and push them forward in bulk, right? So one thing that I'm concerned about is, for example, well plugging or well plugging extensions, right? So as a dissenting commissioner, I could always require that we take each one to the floor and scrutinize them, right? And this isn't just to be a pain in the butt. I mean, the more you put off plugging your well, the higher the probability for groundwater contamination comes, because the steel casing for the well, which this is getting a little technical, right? But the longer that's exposed to the air, the longer the odds of that becoming oxidated and basically stuff from down under seeping upwards and falling back onto the soil, which then seeps into the groundwater. So it's stuff like that I think we can do in 2 years whenever they turn over the next railroad commissioner. That's really when we should get started in regards to doing stuff like updating our databases, dealing with orphan wells comprehensively, requiring full bonding, and also addressing the issue with the P13, the oil wells that are now converted into water wells.
To water wells, gotcha. So it's 3 people on the commission, you said, right?
Yes.
And so your term every 2 years, so your term will be 6 years if elected, correct?
It's 6 years. I already said that I'm not seeking re-election if elected.
Okay.
Because I will be 32 and I need to live my life.
Right on.
And,
Excellent. Fantastic answer. All right. Okay. And another one for you, Jaime. And this one's from Nathan Kinman on Facebook. And he asked, being that we are the new generation of libertarians, and you are likely our youngest candidate, LOL, how do you go about turning on millennials and Zoomers to libertarian ideas and voting for our candidates?
So my thinking really is, as libertarians, we're at an interesting place, right? Because we don't like Democrats or Republicans. And that really means that we can agree with anybody in the country, right? Because whoever you meet, they might not like Republicans or they might not like Democrats. And I think a big issue with libertarians is that, or when we talk about our ideologies, that we try to kind of pull people towards where we're at, as opposed to, first agreeing with them, seeing them where they're at, and then trying to walk them towards our direction, right? So, whenever I talk to somebody, I try to always start in a place of agreement, right? For example, groundwater. I mean, no matter who you are, you can agree that groundwater should be protected. And then from there we could move forward, right? But the thing is that a lot of the times people try to, I think, be a little edgy and try to see something controversial to get people's attention. And to be honest, people are already put off by politics, and we're not helping by throwing controversial statements out there, right? Yeah, that's also the thing I've noticed a lot, that young people do not like politics. They don't like it. I always try to be sneaky about my political events. I try to invite friends, and it's like, oh, this is an event for the campaign, and they're already there, so I have to stay. But it's tricky. It's really tricky with politics. People don't like it too much.
I like it. Mark, you have anything to add to that? I think it's a good question for you as well.
I totally agree with what Jaime is saying, and I see that as well. Is people are very, very put off with politics, and I do agree with Jaime. Is you have to win them over first, and then bring them to your way of thinking. For instance, I was approached by some young college graduates, had just passed the bar, and quote unquote, this is what the two young girls told me. She says, "Oh, well, you're the Libertarian candidate?" Yeah. She says, "Well, you guys are just heartless bastards." That's her words. And of course I went, "Whoa, what was that?" And she said, "You guys want to do away with all social programs." And I immediately said, "Oh, no. I think you've got something wrong." I said, "I want more social programs." That immediately caught their attention, and I changed my stance from being in front of them to being on the side of them, with them. And we started talking about different social programs and whatnot. And I said, the only thing is I don't want the government to run them. Because I said, and I will change my point of view if you could point out to me just one social program run by the government that's run efficiently. Just one, and I will actually drop out of the race. Well, they weren't able to. But when it was all said and done, there wound up being about 5 or 6 of their friends all gather around. When it was all said and done, they said, I don't know whether I'm going to vote for you, but I sure as heck like you. So that to me is a win. And it goes along with also, as people are always asking, why are you wasting so much time and energy in that? To see the smile of satisfaction on someone's face that finally gets it. You have planted the seeds of freedom and of liberty. And that's what it's all about. It's not for me, it's for the next generation. That's why I'm so excited that Jaime is here, is hopefully we can entrust it in their generation. They can move on.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, Jaime kind of touched on the fact that we I think he said we don't really like the two old parties, but I think it's more so that they just can't stand us. Typically, we always seem to get thrown at by them, with these misunderstandings of one another, especially. All right, but coming back to our questions, we got one off of YouTube from Libertarian Dave. What a name. He says, Mark, what would you do to improve Texas schools and improve the safety and security for our children, our most precious resource?
The best thing that can be done to protect our children in school is school choice. And a lot of people say, well, how would that protect? Because along with school choice comes a lot of different things. The schools now have to take responsibility for their security and safety. But as governor, I would go a lot further. One of the first things that I would do is I would address the Texas Sheriff's Association and let them know that they are responsible for their county, that I do not want a single federal or state law enforcement, police, whatever, acting in any manner within their counties, that it is not under the direct authority of the sheriff. And the sheriff, along with the schools, can put together the safety protocols that the sheriff and the schools, along with the parents, this goes along with school choice. Then the parents can actually choose what schools they go to. They can choose if they go to a more science inclined or a more liberal arts inclined school, and they can check what is their safety record, what is their safety protocols, and they can be involved in that. Getting rid of the truancy laws, the laws that actually fine parents if the children are not in public schools or are not in a school. We must get rid of that, because and this is going kind of off on one other direction, but if we look at all the school shootings, they were all done by a former student, somebody that had a grudge against the school system, somebody that had a grudge against a teacher, somebody that had a grudge against somebody because they were forced to go to a school. We must empower the parents to take control, not only of the children's education, but of raising their children the best way they see fit.
Senator Mark, there's a follow-up question then, kind of what you're talking about, so I think it'd be a good time to go ahead and read this one. Why is it okay to take public money and give it to a for-profit school without having the same oversight as the public schools?
Most private schools have, my wife was a teacher, and she always preferred to teach in the private schools, and the teachers were way underpaid because the money did not follow the students. In most cases, whenever somebody puts their children in private school, they are paying not only for the private school, but they're paying for the public school as well. We must hold public schools accountable for educating our children. If they cannot compete, if the money follows the student, now it's not taken public school money and given it to private schools. The money belongs to the student. The Constitution says that the state must provide for a free education. It does not say the state must educate the Texans. The Texans have the right to decide, or should have the right to decide, where those dollars are spent. And if a lot of people say, well, what about some school that's not doing good, that's a public school? What if it goes under? Then so be it. It goes under. If they cannot educate our children at the proper level that we deserve our children to be educated, they need not be in business, because then we're in the business of not excelling the students, but we're in the business of holding everybody down to the lowest possible denominator. That's why we must have empowering the parents for school choice.
Nice. And Christy Mowry just popped in with an empower parents, not government. Competition creates greatness. Privatize it. And obviously, if anybody watched the intro, she's running for the Board of Education here in Texas. So it sounds like she's pretty.
Right. And there are a lot of things that we say that some people are not going to agree with. And yes, there will be teachers and there will be schools that are not going to like it. But it's not about them. It's about the children, and it's about the education of our future generations. It's not about a particular school. It's not about a particular teacher. It's about our children.
Awesome. So I heard a rumor today that Jaime has a little bit of a business plan going for, is it tire recycling? Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you mind giving us some insight to that? Because I was quite intrigued by that.
Yeah, we're opening up a tire recycling plant in South Texas. It'd be the first of its type south of San Antonio. The idea is to take old tires, grind them up into rubber powder or rubber granules, and you can use these powders to make asphalt roads or as aggregate for asphalt roads. You can use them as infill for sports parks, for tracks, for playgrounds. You can use rubber bumpers. You can make pedestrian sidewalks, porous pavements. And it came up because for my tire business, the state requires that I bond all the tires in the facility, right? So this is just so if I go bankrupt, there's money set aside so that the state can then dispose of the tires in the landfill or wherever they want to take it. And it's a parallel with oil and gas, right? That it's crazy that they require that from me as a tire recycling company, but they don't require that from oil and gas operators. And to be frank, also, I mean, responsible oil and gas operators, it's not even an issue for them because they're plugging their wells, right? This is really only the bad actors.
Nice. And so then that would be an extra income stream. Then, and also there's quite a bit of steel in tires, correct? And I guess that would get recycled as well then.
Yeah. So first you take off the radial wire, which is that goes around the tire. You stamp that out, chop it into parts, and then once it's kind of fine, you pass a magnet over it, and the magnet extracts all of the remaining metal cores, and then those are taken to the steel smelters, right, to be made to make new steel. But yeah, it's a big issue because I'm not sure if you've been in South Texas, but it's a lot of empty land, and it seems almost like everybody just wants to get rid of their waste and they throw it in empty lots. And it's important that we start maximizing, I think, what we do have in our society, right? The resources. And I think that recycling is a good way for us to do so.
Outstanding. So at the bottom, we're showing that we're in the bonus round now. So it's kind of a free for all. So these questions will be coming up. Judith Reuter is asking, I've seen a gajillion ads everywhere for Beto and Abbott, so wondering where Mark's are. Mark, where are your dadgum ads, man?
Well, my ads are, they're already printed. They're filmed. They're just ready to go. We're just waiting for the contributions and the funds to air them because it costs, the last I checked, it was about between $30,000 and $50,000 for a 30 to 60-second ad. So as soon as we have the funds in, the ads are all ready. They're ready to go. I know a lot of people think that libertarians have a lot of money to spend. The difference is Governor Abbott and Beto O'Rourke will spend probably $80 million to my, if I'm lucky, 50,000. So as soon as the money comes in for that, they're all ready to go, and we're ready to go with that.
Outstanding. You can go ahead and plug your website now since it's over your right shoulder there.
Exactly. Anybody who wishes to see the ads, I invite them to donate to markforgov.com, and the ads will be posted immediately.
And Jaime, what's your website? How can we get to you?
So my website is, I ran for school board 2 years ago, right? And my website was votejaimediez.com. But I'm stingy and I didn't renew the URL. Thought I'd be able to buy it back. And I think right now some troll somewhere in Asia bought it from me and doesn't want to give it back. So now we are vote, the number 4, and my last name Diez, Diez.com.
Awesome. Great. And you have a donate link there, right?
Yeah. We also take Bitcoin in case anybody.
Oh.
Yeah, Bitcoiners don't like to give away their Bitcoins. We've got like $40 in Bitcoins, but I'm so optimistic. I mean, it's still on there. And
outstanding. That's good to give people options. All right. Well, we will see what we got coming up next from Libertarian Dave again on YouTube. And he's asking, Mark, how do you propose to make school choice viable in rural areas?
Well, in a lot of rural areas, there are good schools. School choice does not mean we get rid of the independent school districts. All it means is that those districts must step up. The parents now have a choice. Contrary to popular belief, there are a lot of good schools. There are a lot of, real estate value is dictated a lot by how good the schools are in the district. There are a lot of good schools, and those schools will do just fine. And by allowing school choice, you get rid of one of the things that my wife would come home every day when she worked for one of the independent school districts. She would come home just in tears because she would say, I am not teaching. I am doing red tape, paperwork for the federal government and the state government of what they require us to do to keep funded. She said, if we had school choice, we could get rid of all that red tape and they could go back to teaching the children. It would not affect a lot of the rural areas, other than it would make it a lot better because they will get their fair share of the money.
All right. So I'm being told we're kind of up against our time right now. We got one more question for Jaime coming up. Let's see if it pops up here. And that is, what's that poster behind you, Jaime?
Yeah.
This is a Once Upon a Time in Mexico poster.
Ah.
So I'm traveling right now. I'm in Midland and I'm working out of my friend's office / my air mattress over here. Yeah, so this is actually not my.
Yeah, way to deflect that.
It's signed though. It's a signed poster.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's a pretty big deal.
That Antonio Banderas, and who was in that?
It's Antonio Banderas and Johnny Depp, Salma Hayek.
Selma Hayek, right?
Salma Hayek in that, yeah.
Yeah. She has some really good economic positions as well. I just always see these things that are attributed to Hayek. Pretty amazing. Sorry, y'all. Bad jokes.
It's all over the place.
Well, as we wind this up, I just wanted to say, I know we've had 3 of these now. We've had a lot of people behind the scenes that make this work. I know it looks like we're just running this thing on our own, but we have a lot of people. If they would just kind of want to pop into the chat real quick, I'd like to give some quick introductions, if we could. We've got Amanda Gibbs, Kyle Ward, Jeff Miller, Dave Marino, and David Jones. They were all back there feeding us questions. They were making sure everything looked right, sounded right, giving us some feedback and whatnot. So we thank them very, very much for all their help. And we would just like to just be able to sign off real quick. Any parting shots there for you, Mark?
Thanks to Darren for doing a great job hosting.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I just want to thank everybody, and I want to once again say, see, Amanda, it went off perfectly. So Amanda has been working on this. Everybody of the team has been working on this, and throughout the campaign, every Monday, and Thursday. We have Zoom meetings, and we go over all kinds of issues and prepare things and try to figure out how is the most prudent way to spend what little bit of money we do get. And we have done, I'm very, very proud of the entire team. It's not just me. Matter of fact, I couldn't do it without everybody, and there's still a whole bunch of people behind the scenes. I just want to thank everybody. Jaime, thank you for being on the AMA, and it turned out to be wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, right on. Jaime, you got anything to part with for us?
No. I mean, I appreciate the invite a lot. Thanks for having me. And I think it's also important just to throw out the comment out there that right now people are really upset, and I think it's important that we recognize that it's not our fault the way the world is. It's not the fault of the person that voted this way or that way. It's the fault of the politicians that have abused it, right? So I think it's important that we project our energy in a constructive direction, and it's not constructive when we get mad at our neighbor, right, or our dad or our mom or whoever in our lives. So I mean, just more love, and thank y'all for having me.
Glad to have you, Jaime. And just to point out, Dave Jones has that Houston Oilers hat on, but he's actually from Tennessee. So
I'll have you know this is a Tennessee Oilers hat. Thank you very much.
No such thing. That never happened. All righty, y'all. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps it up. If anybody else has anything to say,
don't forget to vote.
Don't forget to vote. I did today for both these.
If you haven't already, there's 2 more days of early voting, and then election day is Tuesday the 8th. So
yes, don't
vote
forget.
Libertarian.
All right.
Yeah, I got mine too.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Vote gold.
Vote gold.
Vote gold.